So welcome to today's session, our book talk, and we have Dr. Thomas Parham presenting today. Of course, as we normally do with everything at the university, a land acknowledgement. So the Faculty of Media Arts and Performance, and of course the center is located within the university, and of course the university is located on the territory referred to for. Which is the territory of the Anishinaabe, Lakota, Nakoda, and Nakoda, and the homeland of the Métis and Métis Nations. Today, we're going to be hearing from Dr. Thomas Parham on the talk titled Equipping the Entrepreneur Artist, Preparing Students for Careers, Not Just Jobs. And I think it's very timely based on all the conversations we're having, different issues within the university and different opportunities. We're looking forward to this. And so thank you everyone for coming. And a brief summary in today's session, Dr. Parham will explore how to navigate your vocational calling while keeping curiosity, daring to dream, and honing your voice. I'll do a quick intro of him, and then after that, I'll pass it on to him. Dr. Thomas Parham is an Associate Dean for Palm Beach Atlantic University's College of the Arts and teaches cinema arts classes. After graduating from Annapolis, he spent 7 years on active duty, qualifying as a surface warfare officer. He left the Navy to complete graduate degrees to communications. Dr. Parham worked at Paramount Pictures in the mid-90s as supervisor of publishing for the studio's licensing division and worked on more than 100 television episodes during that decade. He wrote for the long-running CBS drama JAG and Family Channel sitcom Big Brother Jake, and served as on-location writer's assistant for Touched by an Angel's third season. Dr. Parham previously taught at Boyle University and Azusa Pacific University, where he served as founding chair for the cinema department. He's contributed chapters to several books, and McFarland released his monograph titled Hailing Frequencies Open, Communication in Star Trek, The Next Generation in 2019. He's also a Fulbright scholar at the university and stationed at the Department of Film. And so with that, I'll pass it on to you. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks, Tyler, and thanks for welcoming. So my talk this afternoon is preparing students for careers, not just jobs, equipping the entrepreneurial artist. And just a little summary of some of the photos. Technology. The first photo, that is from a short film. The university came to my department at Azusa, said, we want you to make a fall kickoff video. They had budget. And so all of our faculty were working professionals. So what we did is we made the film and paid our students to work for us, which it turned out very well. Jaded is one of my big success stories. Ricky Staub wrote the script for a creative process class. One of his classmates came up to him after class and said, I want to make that. And I told them I'll pay for it. And they made enough prize money to pay me back and had more for their next project. And now he has moved from acting and writing to writing and directing. He's got a movie on Netflix right now. Those are three of my former students at a conference we attended together. Kim's working in LA. Nick works for IGN, if there are any gamers in there. He has worked himself up. He is now an executive producer. He directs their live Comic-Con show. Several years ago, my bestie from the academy and I ended up at the same hotel with Nick and his boss, and we met them at dinner twice. And his boss was like, "You did a good job training the kid." And Nick has worked his way up. Dr. Lindsay Marshall, my first female protege, because one of my colleagues noticed I was mentoring the guys and not mentoring the women. They called me out. And obviously I've had several female proteges since, but she teaches at Illinois State University. And she's got a book coming out soon. Her specialty is Native American Studies. And then finally, Jordan Calloway came in as a child actor, studied film as an undergrad, did some projects here and there. And now he is the lead on Fire Country, which shoots in Vancouver. He just directed his first episode, episode 404. His dad is a cinematographer, so it kind of runs in the family. His mom is a former actor. Okay. How does this work?
You do this?
Yeah.
Okay, calling. So that is me as a baby. I was baptized on the USS Valley Forge. Testing out my lungs, it is no surprise that I became a singer. That's my late father and my late mother holding me. That's Chaplain Salisbury, who was the chief of chaplains, the two-star admiral in charge of the chaplain corps. The USS Valley Forge was decommissioned in the early 70s. Parts of the ship were used as sets for the science fiction film Silent Running. So you could say I was baptized on a spaceship. This lecture would be incomplete without me acknowledging some of my mentors. Whoops. Okay, that's my dad, myself, and my sister, 1944 to 2021. So May retired in 2021. She and my dad were both captains. I did not stay in long enough, but I had the desire. I wrote my dad during my second of 3 Persian Gulf deployments, figuring out I really do not want to do this the rest of my life. He wrote back saying, I don't care, I just didn't want to pay for your undergrad education. Just why we paid for my master's. And then I've got to acknowledge some of the mentors who've meant so much to me in my life. The first 3 of whom are no longer with us. Dr. Mary Howland. These first 3 are all professors of mine from the Naval Academy. Mary taught me how to be a good teacher. I tutored in the writing center. Writing centers are a fairly new innovation. But in the mid-80s, when I graduated, we just started at the writing center. So when I was a senior, my last semester, I tutored in the writing center. And the next semester, I started a graduate degree. I'll never finish the University of Maryland. But I tutored in the writing center, and I also taught 2 sections of freshman English. And Mary's the one who taught me how to organize everything. Dr. John Wooten, another dear friend and mentor. John passed away from a massive heart attack when I was teaching in California. But he taught me that you can use your creativity and your infuse who you are, even in some of your academic works. I had writer's block. I had to write a paper for my Tolkien Lewis class, and it was about Screwtape Letters. And then I asked him at the last minute, can I be creative? And he said, absolutely. And everything flowed. And finally, Dr. Nancy Wicker. Nancy really taught me or encouraged me to pursue popular culture as a valid academic pursuit. And she sadly passed from cancer this summer while I started teaching at the Naval Academy as a graduate assistant. I ended up helping to plan her memorial service. And it was the same timing. She was a big comic book fan. And that was when, in the mid-80s, DC Comics killed off the Silver Age version of Supergirl. And she was a fan of Supergirl. And after she passed, there was a box of comic books in her office. And the staff found them and said, I think she'd want you to have these. And so that was her last gift to me. Calling. I graduated from the Naval Academy. There's President Reagan. I had at least one encounter with him every year I was at the Academy because we're the closest ones to DC. So we got to do all the good stuff like sing in the White House at Christmas time, the inaugural galas for both him and President Bush for their second terms, Christmas in Washington, et cetera, et cetera. Can you press? I don't know how this will. There you go. Oh. I wanted to.
It felt like you were just born to do something.
Yes. Heating and air conditioning. And I love this clip because some people have known since they were kids what they wanted to do with their lives. I'm not one of those. My best friend's wife has known since she was like 10 that she wanted to be a writer. Specifically, she's worked in television and also journalism. One of my proteges who just graduated last year, he's known since he was 12 that he wanted to be a playwright. So by the time he came to us, he had already won playwriting competitions in high school. I had the opportunity to direct one of his 2-act plays. That wasn't me. And most of our students are not gonna be like that either. And the thing is, when you go to the Naval Academy, you have to serve at least 5 years active duty. I did 7 before you can do something else. And so that's a picture of the ship I was on, a guided missile cruiser imported in Yokosuka, Japan. That's me with the mascot of the base in Yokosuka, me on the bridge during restricted maneuvering. I'm providing color commentary for a boxing match during Steel Beach Sunday. The captain, I was special services officer. There's an acronym SLJO, the acronym, I won't say it right now because it's off color, but it means poopy little jobs officer. Basically, everything that nobody else wants to do, you get to do. So as administrative officer for the ship or ship secretary, I had a lot of those collateral duties. But the captain decided he wanted to make a newscast. So I was just talking to one of the students at lunch yesterday that we would get naval messages with wire feeds, and then we would take them and rewrite them and then broadcast them on the ship's internal communications system. And then finally, one of the best days of my life, that's Captain Center, who presenting my service warfare officer pin during that second Persian Gulf deployment. So people always ask me, how did you get into film? Like I said, I did not grow up watching a lot of movies. We went to movies, even though my dad was a Navy chaplain. He wasn't one of those, oh, media evil. We watched things. Now, he was very specific about what we could watch. We didn't watch Popeye because bad impressions of sailors going around picking up fights. Also, when Good Times first started, they didn't think it was good, positive stereotyping of African American families. However, when Janet Jackson joined the cast in season 4, I successfully lobbied my parents to let me watch the show because it's Michael's little sister and she's cute. This is way before What Have You Done For Me Lately, of course. But on my ship, some of the things, like I said before, I was ship secretary and had a lot of collateral duties. One of the things is the captain asked me to put together a ship's video library before we deployed. So we went from 0 to, before we deployed, we had more than 400 laser discs and VHS tapes. And if there was anything kind of interesting, I would buy a copy for me personally. So when I left Japan, I had more than 200 laser discs and VHS tapes. The ship's familygram was a naval message we would send out to the families every week to let them know what's going on. Because, we are in the middle, when we got there, we were in the middle of the Iran-Iraq war, escorting tankers to make sure they were safe. And then the cruise book, which basically kind of like a yearbook, but you have them for different cruises. I was editor of that, and we ended up winning an award from the Navy, which was kind of cool. When I was in my interview for graduate school, I figured out I was supposed to study writing. In the interview, because I just thought I had the catalog sent to me waiting for me when I stayed with a friend when I left Japan, and they had all these cool TV and film programs, and I thought, okay, I'm supposed to do something with TV and film. In my interview, I figured out I'm supposed to write. And so I ended up resigning my commission because the Navy had turned me down for public affairs officer twice. Meanwhile, I had to turn down a Family Channel job because I couldn't get out of the Navy fast enough to take it. It eventually came open again. And long story shorter, after I resigned my commission, one of my mentors suggested applying for the PhD program. They selected 10, I was number 11. So long story shorter, somebody didn't get their sabbatical, number 11 becomes number 10, so I got in. When I was ABD, the university president asked me, what are you gonna write your dissertation on? And I said, guess, not Star Trek. Fast forward, after I moved to LA, no solid job prospects. I'm on the Star Trek website, clicking around. Click here for exciting opportunities at Paramount Pictures. Click. We're looking for a supervisor of publishing who knows Star Trek in all its incarnations. Just wrote a book about it. Somebody's got publishing experience. My last Navy job was publishing, editing safety publications. So I just faxed them my cover letter and said, I think I'm your guy. And I was. And I'm still in contact with my old boss, my old boss's boss, and my old suite mate, through social media. I ended up leaving Paramount the first time to work on Touched by an Angel. Complete stranger at a church retreat had been talking to a friend of mine and who had recommended me for this job. I wasn't even gonna consider it because I would have had to move to Utah. And again, long story shorter, it was the only show my parents made it a point to watch. I'd never seen the show. It was that weird little angel show Saturday nights. The season I was on the show is when they moved to Sunday nights and the ratings exploded. It went from being that weird little angel show to the top 10, and Roma Downey ended up being nominated for Best Lead Actor in a Drama. When I left Touched by an Angel, because I had to move to Utah, which was weird. But I started cold calling some places, and there's more to it than that. I broke my leg skiing, and so I'm in a pity party because I can't leave. I'm literally laid up, can't put pressure on my leg. And I talked to the assistant casting director, and she said, "Oh, they loved you at Paramount. Just start cold calling places." Second place I called was JAG. Their writer's assistant had just quit. I ended up working for my boss for 2 years. He rarely answered his wife's calls as fast as he answered my call, the facts I got back that day. And JAG was very good to me. I ended up selling a script. They kept me on when I started teaching as a consultant. So when I tell my students, this is the condo JAG bought me, not really exaggerating. And all three of my academic jobs found me. When I was working on JAG, the head of the film program, I had already started doing some stuff with them on an advisory board, and they had a need for another film professor, so they came to me. Azusa Pacific poached me because they were looking to launch their film major. And then Palm Beach Atlantic, that was just my best friend from grad school was retiring. And due to some personal circumstances and some things at the university, the timing was perfect. And like I said before, JAG was very good to me. I still get residual. There's a residual check waiting for me at my sister's house because they don't forward those. So when I was in LA for a conference last month, I got frantic emails and voicemail messages from a Writers Guild rep. And I called them and said, "Hey, you can send it to my sisters because I'll be there in December when I get back from Canada." So here's the key. And this is the number one thing our students' parents want to know. I presume it's the same up here as it is down, is how are you gonna help my kid get a job? And part of the thing is, I tell my students, the sooner you figure out what you wanna do, the sooner we can help you get there. But a lot of them have no idea. And especially with what we do in both the theater departments and also the cinema departments, there are so many jobs out there that people haven't even thought of. Locations, for example, I was talking with somebody about locations the other day. My roommate on Touched by an Angel had done locations before he ended up working as an executive producer's assistant on the show. That's a viable thing. People just don't realize there's so many jobs in film and television and theater that people don't even think about because they don't know much about how those industries work. But my friend Marcia Powers showed me this Venn diagram and I love it. Things you enjoy doing, things you're good at, and things people will pay you for. And the intersection of those, the sweet spot is your dream job. One of the things that I've noticed in my 26 plus years of teaching is there are things that our students might enjoy doing, but they're not particularly good at. One of the things we can help them is to help them own their craft, be better at that. I mean, the nice thing about being a writer is I can write something else. Don't like that script, I can write something else. Actors have a limited, they can improve their acting abilities, but one of the things these days, especially, it's not about your ability, it's about what you look like next to her. Are you believable as a couple? Are you believable as a family? And the things people will pay you for. You know, that's the thing. And one of the qualities one of the, I not quality, I'm trying to think of the right word. Something we can show our students is the whole realm of artistic activities within the entertainment industry. There's so many things out there that they might not even know that's a job. Set decoration, art department, those are jobs. And most people don't realize that. First off, foster intellectual curiosity. I am so over everybody, AI. It's interesting, if you've noticed the stock market in the US has been all over the place this week, that's because of AI. Why? Because people have put so much money into it, not realizing that it's highly volatile. And when I was in LA for that conference sponsored by the Television Academy, there's prediction there's going to be a crash. And so that's one of the things fueling market instability. And as an educator, here's my beef with AI. It doesn't think. Period. I love, by the way, I should have taken a picture of it on the monitor when I walked back to my dorm room last night, that if it doesn't find the answer, it makes up stuff. And our students are still responsible for it. I can't tell you how many times I found it on the internet. It's wrong. But it was on whatever website, doesn't matter. It's in your paper. They're not getting graded. You are. You didn't check the information. The primary rule of computing, garbage in, garbage out, GIGO. But more important, and this is something I've been telling my students for years, education isn't just about the recitation of knowledge, but it's contextualization. And I tell them, I don't care so much what it is, but what it means. We've got these wonderful little devices, these computers that are handheld in our pockets that have far more computer power than the room full of computers on my ship that I was in charge of for my last assignment on my ship. As educators, we need to create lifelong learners. And I love this quote by Scorsese. I'm often asked by young filmmakers, why would you look at old movies and old screenplays? He's made a number of pictures in the last 20 years and still considers himself a student. Study the old masters, enrich your palette, expand the canvas. There's always so much more to learn. I'm sure those of us in here who work with film our students have not seen a lot of the classics. Why? Most of them aren't streaming. I mean, that's the biggest hole. If HBO Max didn't have that TCM hub, we would really be up the creek. Because a lot of them think that film history began with Jaws or Star Wars. No, it goes way beyond that. I have a student in my screenwriting fundamentals class who considers herself a snob and classic movies, hadn't seen Casablanca, and I called her out. It's like, if you haven't seen Casablanca, you're a poser. Because it's number 3 in the American Film Institute list of films, and it's my favorite romance film. Hollywood versus disruptions. This industry has changed so rapidly in the 26 years I've been teaching and in the 30 plus years I've been working in it. And these are all recent disruptions too. The first disruption, the streaming services. And I just had a conversation with one of my former students that I podcast with. I don't think streaming is a sustainable business model. And the problem is everybody if Netflix is doing it, everybody can do it. No, Netflix still hasn't made a profit. You say, oh, they make a profit. No, they have a heavy debt load. Is their debt load smaller than it used to be? Sure. But if the only way you're making money is raising subscriber prices, that's a problem. And everybody's doing the same thing. Every single streaming service has jacked up their prices this year, some more than others. And we've got 8 right now, it'll be 7 next year because Hulu is going to be fully integrated with Disney Plus. That's an unsustainable business model. But the problem is it's gotten people out of the habits of going to movie theaters. Period. Now, will people go to movie theaters for the right thing? Sure. Wicked previewed last night. Big numbers, biggest preview numbers of the year. No surprise. Interesting, the critical reception has been all over the place. One of the critics that I like a lot, Justin Chang, called it an abomination, which is kind of that's a religious term. And it's like, really, is it that bad? It's still positive on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm seeing it this afternoon for myself. I think part of the problem though was that splitting it into two parts was a cash grab. That was a Universal Pictures decision. They probably did not need to do that because, let's see, 5 hours for a 2.5 hour play, bit excessive, but Universal likes money. Second disruption, COVID-19. Boy, notice how these two tagged in on each other. COVID, the theaters are actually shut down. So even if you were inclined to go see a movie, you can't. The theaters opened in Florida before they opened most places in the country. The first thing I saw mid-pandemic was Tenet, and that's one of the reasons why Christopher Nolan broke up with Warner Brothers. He did not want them to release that. And Warner's did this whole experimentation with day and date, releasing movies simultaneously in theaters and on HBO Max. And they had to pay off profit participants for that. But, third disruption, the Writers Guild and SAG-AFTRA strikes, back to back. And there was the threat of a third strike, Teamsters strike. Now, what's interesting is these strikes have benefited Canadian production quite a bit because there are Canadian shows that weren't intended for American television. They ended up on US television. Why? Because they're already made. We've got product. They need product. And that's kind of what gave me the idea for my Fulbright project, because I happened to stumble upon Transplant on NBC, and I'm like, this is a great medical show. Why aren't we seeing more of these shows? And Christine and I had a great conversation about that last month, and we will have more with other faculty. But I was able to interview the creator, executive producer of Transplant, and we had a great conversation last week in Toronto. I don't think production, and I'm not going out on a limb here. I don't think production is ever going to fully resume in LA like it used to, because the governor talked the state legislature into passing a $720 million production incentive, but I think that money, once it's gone, game over, because it's cheaper to shoot elsewhere. Disney left Georgia, citing having to pay into healthcare as one of the reasons why they left. Because it's cheaper to shoot in the UK if you don't have to pay into people's healthcare, because UK is a single payer country. Canada's a single payer country. US, not a single payer country. Will AI cause another disruption? Maybe, but there will always be known unknowns. Why is this important? Because it's going to affect the way we train our students. And this was one of the hot topics at the Media Educators Conference last month in North Hollywood. You can't rely on legacy media anymore. I mean, even now, after claiming that Warner Brothers Discovery wasn't for sale, they're fielding offers. And they've got 3 suitors: Universal, Netflix, and Paramount Skydance are the 3 suitors for Warner Brothers Discovery. I have no faith in my government to stop this based on antitrust rules, because that's not how this group of people work. And I'll stop there. The upshot is, we as educators need to emphasize tangible marketable skills. This is an incomplete list. Nonlinear editing is hot though, because all these products, whatever, reality shows, they're going to need to be edited. And the great thing is, you don't need to be physically there. My friend Livia she's worked on independent films as well as multiple TV shows as an editor. And for one of the projects toward the end of COVID, they shipped the computer to her apartment and then paid for her to upgrade her home internet service, and said, have at it. You can work from anywhere in the world. And that is becoming more and more of the standard. Sound design, something that people don't pay a lot of attention to, which they need to. Because at my old university, we had a film that was beautifully shot, and then at premiere night, in the Writers Guild Theater, in a 7.1 equipped theater, it sounded like hot garbage. Why? Because the sound mix wasn't, we didn't pay attention to the sound mix. And I leveraged that to hire a full-time sound professor. And one of the first things he had me do is approve buying a ridiculously expensive control surface for Avid S1 control surface. We were on the homepage of Avid for a while. We were one of 3 undergraduate institutions in the US to have one. But guess what? Our sound got a lot better. And our screening room was certified as DTS 7.1. And with a 4K production, with 4K projection. Production management, and this is on the theater side and on the film side. The business aspect of this stuff, most people don't like to do, but guess what? It's called show business. And I have a student who graduated top of, not just, she was the top cinema major and the top major in the College of the Arts for last year. And I asked her first 3 years, what do you want to do? First year, I want to write. Second year, I want to direct. Third year, I want to act. She does all of them really well, but the thing she's getting paid to do is produce. Why? Because most people don't like the logistical aspect. It's like, oh, let the suits worry about it. Let somebody else worry about that. Same thing with theater. Can you call a show? Do you know what a prompt book is? I adjudicate high school musicals for the Kravis Center, the local performing arts center in West Palm Beach. But we interview the stage managers if they're student stage managers and look through their prompt books. One of my favorites is this girl was so organized. This is my rough draft, and then I transferred all the notes to this before we opened. It's like, okay, girl, you got it going on. Web design. Almost any kind of design work that the art and design folks do. Can you get AI to do some of it? Yeah, you're gonna get what you pay for. It's gonna look like, generic copy paste art. But a real human doing design who can provide rough drafts, concepts and can get instant feedback from you as a client. Those are skills that can't be replicated by a computer. And Tilly Norwood, even though she's threatening to take people's jobs, can't get on the stage and act. She doesn't really exist. You know who Tilly Norwood is? This AI actress that somebody's creating. One of the guys who spoke to us at the workshop, at the conference last month said the whole thing's a fraud, but whatever. The most important thing is encourage students to generate their own content, because we are shifting from this legacy-based media to the creator-based economy. And this is the most tangible example. When the first version of this came out earlier this year, I quipped on my podcast, TV is the new TV. But this is, if you can't read it, August 26th. YouTube is the most watched platform on television sets, period. Not HBO Max, not Netflix, YouTube, user-generated content. And so a lot of the legacy media people are going to content creators. They're looking for the next big thing. I found out 2 guys I used to go to church with in LA, Rhett and Link, one of the sessions at the conference last month was based on their company, Mythical Entertainment. Have you heard of them? She loves them.
I love them.
I've known them for years, but I had no idea they were so big. But I'm not their target audience. I'm not their target audience. But more and more deals like that are being made. And they have gone from, I think they started with 20 employees, and now they have like 100 full-time employees with benefits. They sent their CEO and their COO to the conference. I texted Rhett and said, dude, pretty cool. Pretty cool. And those are the types of things that our students could be doing. Who knows? Some of them might already be doing it. Nurture learning communities. And I know y'all do this because I've seen you do it in practice. I've seen the film students shooting in practice. I've gotten the emails saying, hey, can you meet us for lunch? Oh, I'm bringing a friend. I'm meeting with some of the first years next Tuesday. Media plus art plus performance requires collaboration. Plays well with others is the most important skill potential employers want to know about, and it's not on the interview application. And there's no diplomatic way to say it. James Gunn is famous because he has a no a-holes policy on his film sets. And some of the actors are like, ooh, I want to work on that. But having worked on 3 shows and at a studio, trust me, that's a great policy to have. Because there are producers in LA that are notorious for not being fun to work with. And there is a reason why certain actors, directors, and producers work with each other again and again and again. I mean, when you find your tribe, why would you want to work with somebody else? I find it fascinating that Scorsese has kind of adopted Leo as his new De Niro. But there's a 5-part docuseries on Scorsese on Apple TV right now. If you're a Scorsese fan, I highly recommend it. But what's interesting is De Niro basically says, I'm still here for you if it's the right project. And he's got his wheelhouse of projects he wants to work on. My former student, Stu Redwine, creative director at Oxford Road. It's a marketing company founded by one of Stu's good friends. Both of them were my students at Biola. But I have him guest lecture in my classes at PBA via Zoom. And I texted him to make sure I got the first quote right. Teamwork makes the dream work. And also, my ego is not my amigo. And the key thing is, and this is something that we really can foster with our students, is it's not about you, it's about the project. Because when the project is more important than any of the people, and everybody prioritizes the project, then everybody's free to create and contribute equally. And it's not about ego. And it's hard for some of these undergrads to understand that. It's like, my words are my babies. But some of them, I've been doing this for a while, some of them will trust. One of the things about Ricky, from the first slide, Jaded, we shot the film. And then the crucial scene at the end of the movie involves an encounter between this youth who's got some college student who's got issues. He's a player. And he has an encounter with a homeless woman. And the first homeless woman we cast, way too attractive. Because you start thinking, is he gonna try to do something like, oh, we don't want to go there. And I found out that one of my colleagues at the university, one of the social work profs, had been a child actor in Westerns and John Wayne. So we reshot that sequence. And he trusted, Ricky and Anders trusted me, we need to reshoot the sequence, and we did. And then it won a bunch of awards. So, but a lot of students are like, oh, we're done. It's like, but at the end of the day, I tell my students, it's not, I know how to do this. This is your project. And that is the crew of Trope, the first student film exec produced at Palm Beach Atlantic. What's kind of cool is all these kids are doing well. Hunter was our student producer, and he's teaching. He just got married. Arielle in the middle in the green, she became one of our student producers, and she is interning for the Walt Disney Corporation in Florida right now. Faith Kasem and Claire Creasy graduated a year apart. They were both the outstanding graduates from College of the Arts, 2 years in a row, cinema arts students. And I think Faith graduated with a 4.0. I can't remember what Claire did. Andrew's working for a nonprofit organization. I mean, they're all doing really well. Some of them started their own production companies. My Raven in the Sun cast, my Benitha just got her master's in social work a couple of years ago. Terry Crew's daughter, Azriel, broke my heart by transferring to NYU after the production wrap, after that semester. But all of them are doing well. Alex ended up joining the army. Jonathan ended up becoming a taught for a while and this left teaching job. He was starting to get more acting work. And my AD, Danny in the back, he AD'd for me on a couple of shows. I'm so proud of him. He knew from his freshman year, I want to be a high school theater teacher. And he's been doing that for years, and now he's a high school theater teacher in the city right next to Azusa, which is so cool in the middle of here. And this ties into what we just talked about. We've got to get them to accept constructive criticism. Because you will not go far in this collaborative media if nobody can give you notes. On season 5 of JAG, we had a new writer that had freelanced for us before. He's a novelist. But I witnessed the conversation between one of the senior writers and him, where he told him, these are the notes, do them. If you do not do them, I will literally throw the script back at you. And I love the fact that Kelly Clarkson got a whole song out of a Nietzsche quote. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Good song.
It's a banger. But this is part of the whole, constructive criticism is there to help the work better. It's not about us. And if we're mature as artists, we can accept the constructive criticism and use it to make the work better. And it makes us better artists. Also, take risks. And it's funny, I did not realize that he who will not risk cannot win. That's from John Paul Jones, who's buried. His crypt is beneath the Naval Academy Chapel Hill. I had punch and cookies there all 4 years. I was a student at the academy right before we sang. I think one of the best things we could do, and Matthew and I have talked about this, is give our students freedom to fail in a controlled environment. Everything they make may not be fantastic. That's okay. It's film school. Let them make their mistakes now while we can be there to guide them and give them course correction, etc. Because once they graduate, game over. And if they fail in the wrong thing, if you fail in front of everybody, you might be put in the Hollywood jail for a while. Josh Trank, who directed Fantastic Four, the third movie that Fox made before the rights were brought back to Marvel. That has resurfaced because Miles Teller has made some comments about that on his press junket. But when everybody is there to see your big time flame out, ooh, man. P.S. Make sure you have something to say. I can't. There's a moment from toward the end of Indiana Jones 3, the one with Sean Connery, where father and son have been at it, and he finally says, "Junior, what is it you've been wanting to tell me all these years?" Nothing. It's like, well, dude, get over it. And one of the students I had lunch with yesterday asked me about this, where I found my artistic voice, how it came. And I have to give credit to one of my first mentors. My 9th grade English teacher, Wendy Mathias, was the daughter of my 8th grade English teacher, Mary Slade. And so she, in 10th grade, I started working in the school newspaper, and I also took a creative writing class with her. Actually, the very first script I ever wrote was a radio play adaptation of Ray Bradbury's The Veldt. I thought it was lost, and I found it in some papers that I put in storage before my mom passed. So, but our class, the senior class at my high school always would write a class song. So my sophomore year, the class of '79, I believe, basically took Billy Joel's "Just the Way You Are" and changed precious few words. And so my first draft editorial got, "You guys stink. You're so uncreative, blah, blah." And Wendy said, no, you've got this all wrong. Take a cue from Jonathan Swift. Bend over backwards to compliment them on how efficient it was to have each person contribute 2.3 words or whatever the 2.8% per student on the committee. And so this is the editorial that was published. I inherited my mom's pack rat genes. But it actually affected change. The school administration ruled, starting with the next year, that class songs had to be original. But I never, it's so easy, especially when you're younger, saying, I'm gonna say exactly what I'm thinking and feeling. Well, that might not be the best way to get your point across. And that gentle course correction Wendy gave me, and just the mentorship she provided my 3 years on the newspaper staff, just invaluable. Dare to dream. And I'm not talking manifestation. That's become a thing recently where people are like, I really wanted to do this, so I manifested it and it happened. It's like, no, dog, that's not how it happens. It happens with hard work and perseverance. Everyone has to pay their dues. I have told students at all my schools, I never want to hear you say you don't want to be a production assistant, because I was a 30-something-year-old production assistant and a doctoral candidate. I don't want to hear those out of the words of a 20-something who hasn't done anything with their lives yet. Everybody's got to pay their dues. Everybody starts at the bottom. However, the reason I took that job is one of the perks is I got to pitch ideas for episodes. And they bought the idea and they bought the script, which was my first sale, which got me in the Writers Guild. Practice doesn't make perfect. I don't know who came up with that. Some of those adages are sticks and stones make her. No, words do hurt. Practice doesn't make perfect, but it does make better. And you have to practice. Writing is writing is writing. The students I met with yesterday asked me about, I'm a bit of a unicorn, I'm an albatross. Bit of a unicorn. I do creative writing and I also do academic writing. I, use both disciplines. There is a connection between the two. I don't necessarily have one favorite. I just like to tell stories. I like to write. Luck is when opportunity meets preparation. And the key is I was an Eagle Scout. I am an Eagle Scout. Be prepared to cite the Boy Scout of America's model. You got to be ready. You got to be ready. If somebody asks you, so how's your script coming on? That's the thing about LA. Everybody thinks they can write. How's your script coming along? You can say that to your chauffeur, your Uber driver, your waiter, your writing student, hopefully. But you've got to be ready. You never know. That's what the understudies are about. I just saw the new movie Jay Kelly with Sony in it, but there's a whole plot element. It's not really a spoiler. It's from the very beginning of the movie. But Billy Crudup is mad because you stole my role. It's like, dude, that was never your role to begin with. I mean, casting directors are going to cast who's right for the part. You might think it's your role, but if somebody outperforms you, if somebody out auditions you, that's not your role. Some people have this weird sense of entitlement. Life doesn't work like that. This was the first main stage play directed at Azusa. It's my favorite play in the world by Thornton Wilder. These are the 6 principals on the left and the family unit on the right. But just real briefly, it's just kind of cool what they're all up to. Mackenzie, working actor. She was just on Georgie and Mandy's First Marriage. Steve Patterson, I was at lunch with one of my music colleagues this summer. He's guest co-hosting Live with Kelly and Mark. And he's done it multiple times. First day of class, creative process class. I want to be the next David Letterman. Sure you do, kid. Oh my gosh, he's doing it. Karen Dinning-Rugley earned a doctorate. She's director for global mobilization at her alma mater. Ricky has the movie on Netflix, and he and his writing partner Dan are in-demand screenwriters. They've got a bunch of TV stuff coming out. Jennifer Jackson Blair earned her MFA. She's an actor and university professor. Sadly, Janice passed away from an autoimmune disorder. But before I knew she was that sick, I ran into her just kind of randomly, and they connected her with my friend who was teaching the sketch comedy class, so she served as the TA for it. Oops. My final thoughts. I tell my students, don't ask for help, ask for advice. If you ask for help, that puts an onus on the other person. If you ask for advice, it shows that you value their opinion, and if they like you, they'll help you. Comparison is the thief of joy. Teddy Roosevelt said that. Rejoice in your friend's successes. You're not competing with them. None of this. You stole my job, dude. Being a rising tide lifts all boats. I just wouldn't. I take such immense joy out of seeing my students succeed, my friends succeed. I've seen two movies since I've been here that friends of mine worked on. Scott Derrickson co-wrote and directed the Black film too. I texted him afterwards, and some other friends worked on Sarah's Oil. And that I love it. I think it's cool. And both of them got pretty good reviews and did well at the box office. Awesome. And finally, most important, Maya Angelou. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, they'll never forget how you made them feel. And just be that person that people are like, oh my gosh, I love that kid. I have students like this at many of my universities. Johnny Stroman from Azusa Pacific, I connected him with an internship on an indie film Friends from Church were doing, and they ended up working with them, and people who work with them hired him because he's like the most positive kid ever. It's just like you see him, and it's like he just makes you feel good. Be like that instead of like Eeyore. Sorry.
Very well, thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
This is beautiful. Before I get on to one or two questions here, any thoughts in the room, any questions? And those in the Zoom land, yes.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Do you think it's great to tell our students to take risks, and we want them to take risks in their programs. But is it possible to do that in Hollywood? Because everybody knows that the writers rewritten by the directors, years ago when I was teaching narrative cinema, we compared the original Thelma and Louise screenplay by Callie Curry, and the film is the produced film is nothing like the original screenplay.
Yeah, Hollywood is the most risk averse thing. However, the thing that's interesting is Sinners, which is expected to be one of the top Oscar nominees this year, completely original. It's a crazy idea. I want to make a vampire movie set in the South during post Jim Crow South with not based on anything. I think that there's going to be a swing because IPs have been the staple and the franchises, and I'm concerned about Avengers 5. They're going to spend $400 million on this thing before they shoot. I mean, when you spend $400 million on a film, that means you need to make almost $1 billion to break even. And I don't think that's going to be easy. Is it impossible? No. But hopefully cooler heads will prevail. But we need to see more risk taking because this IP nonsense is just this profit margin, this search for this grail. That's why we see so many sequels and reboots and retreads, because nobody wants to take a risk on something brand new. Although oftentimes they will pay off, but that's what happens when you have studios run by CPAs instead of creatives.
I think you can stick the knife in, but you can never overturn the status quo in Hollywood, because it's Hollywood. Hollywood would have to rebound its whole self, its whole model, its whole production setup, so to speak. And just one final thing, AI does not necessarily have to just mean artificial intelligence. Mancha Diawara is running a whole African intelligence program out of NYU. And he's terming AI, and he's made a film.
Oh, interesting.
AI, African intelligence.
Interesting.
I've noticed maybe a bit of a trend recently, maybe a fluke, but there's a bunch of people from YouTube making the jump to conventional TV. Like Smiling Friends, Has
Yep.
Been Hotel, Digital Search, that sort of thing. Do you think that's a trend?
It is a trick, because again, the creator-based economy is being co-opted by legacy media. They want a piece of that. They want to monetize it. It's possible. Rhett and Link have deals with like Tubi. I think, is it Tubi? With one of the free ad-supported streaming platforms. Yeah, everybody's looking for the next big thing. Especially if it's not that. You'll work for how little money? Ooh, we like this guy.
Go ahead.
Not a question, but a comment that I love that you worked on Touched by an Angel, because growing up, I would record on a VHS the seasons and episodes of that, and I really enjoyed those shows that I would so yeah, I'm catching.
Question soon.
Not yet.
Alright, I know that we're gonna be wrapping up very soon, but you've touched on so many things that, you know, really tips and really wise words and I wanted to offer, just for you to offer some thoughts on the role of relationship. It's like I'm hearing you talk about how you got this and how some of your colleagues and how does relationship play into career development and
Relationships are extremely. I mentioned David Caruso, David P. Caruso, not the actor. But he ended up rooming with me in Burbank. And then he was up for a job on Touched by an Angel, and they had hired me. And so he basically leveraged that to give himself a job too. And he ended up staying far longer than I did. Relationships are everything. Most of the good jobs in LA are never posted. It's the people in the know. When I faxed my resume to JAG, thinking it was cold, when I walked in for the interview, and I was on crutches, by the way. But one of the first things Steven, my boss to be, did is he called the script coordinator, and she ran over. She knew one of the writers on Touched, and so Christine had sent my resume. So when I sent my resume, wait a minute, they had it already. So yeah, and that job was never listed. It's just always friend of, you know, I don't know how Hollywood gets away with it, but most of the jobs do not get listed anywhere. It's just like, hey, we need some, you know, I was at the wrap party for JAG one year and we were launching a sister show. And I asked them, hey, do you need people who can do what I can do? Because I have friends who can. And I sent it to two friends. One of them, my former housemate and his best friend, they hired Brian. He ended up on CSI Miami, worked his way up from script coordinator to, I think he was supervising producer when the show ended. And when he's talked to my students, he'll tell them, your professor is the reason this happened. So it's all about relation. You have to take care of each other. That's why the communities are important. And something that I tell my students is some of the people you are in the room with, you might be working with for the rest of your lives.
A follow-up question, and there's no question online and a question everybody take close, but for a lot of the students, particularly, getting into these networks can be very hard. How can they get into networks that can help them start building relationships for their career, whatever area they want to engage with, particularly film?
We work on film sets. You know, I told the students yesterday at lunch, while you're a student, you can do an internship for credit. When you're not a student, you can't. So do an internship, work on a film set, work on a TV production, not a TV set, not the box, but meet people, go to festivals. The thing is, and I tell my students this, right now, take advantage of your student status, but once you graduate, you don't have that anymore. I have two students from Azusa. One ended up doing like 8 internships. He's not even a junior exec. He's an exec at NBC Universal now. And he worked his way from intern to working the desk to eventually people who work at the desk, assistants eventually become, if they stay in for the long haul, they become the execs. And his counterpart ended up working her temp job, turned into a full-time job. And she's still with the Disney Corporation. I'm not sure what aspect she's in, but she's been with them for several years now. But yeah, it's just, you gotta put yourself out there, but internships are really valuable. Getting out and meeting people at film festivals.
Thanks, Tom. Any question, any thoughts for Tom? He was here and on the Zoom.
No questions, just some thanks and appreciation for your talk, but yeah, no questions yet. A
Well,
couple have dropped off because of the time.
yeah, I know, I can get back to you. Well, with that, we want to say thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thank you for doing this, really appreciate it, and I'm really happy that two of my students are here, so. Really good, and thank you, for coming, for the comment, and with that, we bring this to a close. Thank you so much again.
Oh, my pleasure.
And then I know you're still around, so if folks have any questions.
Sure.
just continue. And, so with that, we'll give a